So good evening, everyone. I'm Anurag Katarki. I'm a lawyer practicing in the Supreme Court and the Bombay High Court. Today's topic is something which I've been noticing has been very apparent in the news, and that is the laws governing gaming and gambling in India. Now, as we all know it, gaming and gambling has always been a part of the human civilization. Several instances of betting and gambling are found in the Indian history and mythology. I'm not sure. I hope everyone's able to hear me clearly. Just want to check that once because I think there's some technicality issues going on. If someone can just post on the chat box or something, if they can hear me properly. Perfect. Thank you. So yes, like I was saying, there are several instances of betting and gambling that are found in the Indian history and mythology. References of these activities are found in both the epics Ramayana and Mahabharata. As we all recall, uh, Yudhishthira, the eldest son of Pandu, had a penchant for gambling. One of the most gripping scenes in the Mahabharata shows him losing not only his whole kingdom, but also his brothers and wife in the game of dice. These activities also find mention in the ancient texts like the Rig Veda and the Atharveda, both written around as back as 1500 BC. The Brihaspati, dealing with the gambling in chapter 26, verse 199, recognizes that though gambling has been proscribed by Manu, other lawgivers allowed it when conducted under the state control, providing the king a share of every stake, like what we call nowadays in the form of taxes. Now, before we step in, we all should, as being students of law, I see that a lot of people are students and a lot of people are practitioners, but as we always say, we all are going to be students of law throughout our life. That's why I refer to everyone as students of law. We should first ask a question that where does betting and gambling find its place in the constitution and who has the right to regulate it? As we all know, the Constitution of India has three lists which demarcates the subjects that the union and state can legislate upon. Betting and gambling finds its place in entry 34 of list 2 of the Constitution of India. That means it is in the specific domain of states to regulate and legislate upon. Some states like Sikkim, Nagaland, Goa, Daman and Diu have permitted gambling subject to certain licensing fees and regulations. Like if you guys have been to Goa, you'll see that physical gambling in Goa can only take place in waters. That's why you will see all these casinos in ships which are docked a few meters away from the port. In Sikkim, the locals are not allowed to enter the two casinos. So mainly it is only there for tourist attraction. Now, since the colonial era, yeah, if you can scroll down, please. Uh, the Hi Nancy, can you just please go to the next slide? Now, since the colonial era, the Public Gambling Act 1867 has been in place, which has been ratified by majority of the states such as Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and all. And there are some states like Delhi and Maharashtra that have enacted their own acts. But what remains common between all these acts is the exemption that has been given to game of skill. Now, betting and gambling has been a very contentious topic for our parliamentarians as well. If you can please go to the next slide. Like I said, betting and gambling has been a very contentious topic for a parliamentarian as well, which has been debated upon and pondered upon many times. Like a few examples I would like to give is the first was the Mudgal Committee. Now, the Mudgal Committee found that a large number of people associated with IPL had indulged in hedging bets. and match fixing. The matches had been played in contravention of the IPL operational rules, which brought about a stigma to the game. The committee reported that the investigative agencies lacked the tools to track the bookies, the wager amount, and detect sporting fraud and sans intelligence from sources such as phone tapping. In light of these problems, the investigative agencies stated that the Mudgal Committee that legalizing betting would reduce the element of black money and the influence of the underworld besides helping them in detection and focusing their investigation. Now, as we all know, nothing came out of the committee's report. The next comes the Lodha Committee. Now, while disposing of the civil appeal, the Supreme Court, in the case of BCCI versus the Cricket Association of Bihar and others, it constituted a committee under the chairmanship of the former Chief Justice, Justice R.M. Lodha, to examine and make suitable recommendations to reforms in practices and procedures and necessary amendments in the Memorandum of Association and rules and regulations of the BCCI. Now, in its report, the committee distinguished between match fixing and spot fixing again, which comprises the integrity of the game by attempting to change the course of the match while with betting. It emphasized the need for separate treatment, i.e., punishing for match fixing and regulating betting. The Lodha Committee recommended the legislation of betting with strong safeguards, except for those covered by the IPL and BCCI regulations. It also recommended that spot fixing and match fixing be made a criminal offense, which it already is. The committee opined that a regulatory framework would enable the government in differentiating betting from match fixing. It recommended a few safeguards for regulating betting. It suggested that there should be regulatory watchdogs that would be necessary to ensure that betting houses are transacting and strictly monitored, falling within the registration and such susceptible to cancellation. The players and administrators and others closely associated with the sport would be required to furnish their income details and asset details, and license would have to be issued to those placing bets and wealth. Like we all know, again, nothing came out of this. Then for the last thing, the back in 2018-19 was the Sri Krishna Committee report, which, like all the enactments which I mentioned a short while ago, said betting should be illegal, but things like games of skill should be allowed. Now, what's the problem here is none of the acts which I mentioned earlier, the betting, the Public Gambling Act, or any of the acts enacted by these states, do mention an exception for games of skill, but there is nothing in the legislation which defines as to what is a game of skill. So you might be thinking anyone who is very articulate with words and everything can make anything a game of skill. That is an issue which I will deal with later on in the lecture. Hope I'm fully audible. Yeah. Now, the advent of technology and the constantly increasing number of internet users has led to a paradigm shift in how the gaming industry operates, be it rummy, poker, fantasy sports, and nowadays the newest thing that has come out is prediction games, which are in the sense formerly known as binary options trading. That's how they are trying to get themselves a scale of games. I'm now found online players and audiences, but much of the regulatory realm on such gaming in India remains ambiguous. Online gaming can be divided into three core categories. Many more, but this is what I found as three core categories. One is real money games, which is like you beat rummy, poker, teen patti. Then comes mobile-centric games. They set up paywalls to aid progression. And esports, be it such as cricket, FIFA, baseball, NFL. Now, in recent years, if you would have seen, fantasy sports and unique formats like have had a dominant share in online gaming format in India and has shown great promise and popularity among young working professionals. So in light of this online gaming, Certain state governments have introduced laws to curb this. Now, the recent Telangana's Gaming Amendment Act of 2017 had expanded the meaning of wagering and betting to include acts that risk money on uncertain events, even if such game is one of skill, which is different from the exemption which I earlier mentioned. And they also pass an ordinance that bans betting on wagering on of any kind in cyberspace using any communication devices or computers through common gaming houses and electronic transfer of funds to deliver prize money. Punishment for violation of this crime included a 2-year term of imprisonment and a fine up to 10,000. Recently, the Karnataka Police Amendment Act of 2021 2 banned online gaming and betting, whether it be games of chance or games of skill, and this too was made a non-cognizable offence with 3 years imprisonment and 1 lakh rupee fine. Now, in light of all this, we should take ourselves back to how the case laws have developed and how the courts in India have dealt with the issue of game of chance and game of skill. The oldest case, which dates back for this, is the state of Bombay versus RMD Chamar Bagwala. The Supreme Court interpreted the term mere skill to mean games which predominantly rely on skill. In order to not be classified a game of chance, a game would have to involve a significant exercise of skill. Again, very vague. Now, relying again on this skill test, the Supreme Court in the state of Andhra Pradesh versus K. Satya Narayana and others held that rummy is predominantly a game of skill and not of chance. Now, here we got some more justification as to why is it a game of skill. The court further observed that it requires certain amount of skill because the fall of the cards has to be memorized. The building up of rummy requires considerable skill in holding and of discarding cards. The expression mere skill means presence of skill of a substantial degree. Distinguishing between the terms games of skill and games of chance, the Supreme Court further enhanced this in the case of K.R. Lakshmanan versus the state of Tamil Nadu and stated that in a game of skill, although the element of chance necessarily cannot be entirely eliminated, is one in which success depends principally upon the superior knowledge, training, attention, experience, and adroitness of the player. Now, same thing has been followed by a lot of high courts as well. Like in the Sri Varun Gambhir versus the Union Territory of Chandigarh and others, the High Court of Punjab and Haryana held that fantasy sports differ from online gambling and involve the application of skills in the drafting of teams by assessing the relative worth of the players, taking into consideration other crucial real-world factors such as the pitch, climate, health of the players, etc. The same decision was appealed before the Supreme Court, but it was summarily dismissed. The Bombay High Court also relied on the decision of the Supreme Court in Gurdeep Singh Sachar versus the Union of India, wherein it observed that unlike betting, winning or losing in fantasy sports was not dependent on any team winning or losing in the real world. And things like Dream 11, My 11, Real 11, and what all new fantasy sporting apps are there, could therefore not be found guilty of carrying out gambling or betting in the guise of online fantasy sports. The High Court of Rajasthan in Ravindra Singh Chaudhary versus Union of India was also of the similar view. The a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court in Kishan Chander and ORS versus State of Madhya Pradesh observed, considering the fact that gambling is an evil and it is rampant, that gaming houses flourish as profitable business and that detection of gambling is extremely difficult, the law to root out gambling cannot be but be in public interest. Such a law must of necessity provide for special procedure But so long as it is not arbitrary and contains adequate safeguards, it cannot be successfully assailed. The Supreme Court in M.J. Sivani versus the State of Karnataka referred to two definitions of gaming as given in the Stroud's Judicial Dictionary and the Black's Law Dictionary. The Stroud's Judicial Dictionary said, and I quote, "To play any game, whether of skill or chance, for money or money's worth, the act is not less gaming because the game played is not in itself unlawful and whether it involved or did not involve skill." The Madras High Court also observed that the principal distinction between gaming and betting or wagering is thus immediately apparent. In gaming, the stake is laid by the players upon a game, the result of which may depend to some extent about skill of the players, but in a bet or wager, the winning or losing, the stake depends solely on the happening of an uncertain event. Now, I've kept blabbering about a lot about plethora of catena of judgments that I just mentioned, and you all would be thinking, okay, yeah, we get it. Games of skill are allowed and games of skill are not allowed. Why does this guy just keep on blabbering about the same topic and repeating himself? But as I said, as students of law, it is pertinently important for us to ask ourselves the question as to why this exemption. The menace of addiction and compulsiveness of earning a quick buck is apparent in both. Whether it be just the game of skill or game of chance, just because I applied some skill, I'm still getting a quick buck within 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour, or whatever time a certain game takes. So the menace is still there, and the compulsiveness of people making a quick buck is always there. So whether it be games of chance or games of skill, why has the law carved out this exemption? This thing was beautifully explained in RMD Chamar Bagwala case, as I said earlier. Here, the court held that competitions which involve skill are not gambling, but are commercial activities which are protected under Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution of India. Now, this has been even more beautifully elaborated by the High Court of Karnataka in the recent judgment of All India Gaming Federation. If you can move to the next slide, please, Nancy. That has the thing. Yeah. All India Gaming Federation versus the state of Karnataka and others, where all these arguments were beautifully argued both by the state and the petitioners, and some new conclusions have come out. Now, the High Court of Karnataka delivered a judgment striking down major portions of the Karnataka Police Amendment Act of 2021, which banned online gambling and skill-based online gaming platform. You see, the amendment basically removed any distinction between whether it be gambling or skill-based platform, which technically shouldn't be allowed to, but they did it. So the High Court of Karnataka naturally struck down these amendments of the Karnataka Police Act on certain major grounds. Now here, the state had contended that betting and gambling, apart from entry 34, should also be read into entry 1, that is the public order, entry 2, that is police, and entry 26, that is trade and commerce, in this as being in the state list and being in the field of legislative power. Though the court rejected this proposition and observed, and I quote, that Article 19(1)(g) White Chamar Bagwala 2, at paragraph 5, it has observed, as regards competitions which involve substantial skill, however, different considerations arise. They are business activities, the protection of which is guaranteed by Article 19(1)(g). It is pertinent to mention that in the said decision of the apex court, also observed the power to regulate games or skills lies with the state legislature under entry 26, list 2, trade and commerce. If that be so, an activity which is not a res, and I quote, res extra commercium, cannot intrinsically give rise to any issue of public order. That being said, there is no scope for invoking entry 2 of the state list either. Now, the proponents of game of skill, majorly the AIGF, the All India Gaming Federation, argued that games of skill should also be read as to the right to speech and expression that is enshrined under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution and the right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. The court rightfully, according to me, concurred. The court observed that games involve the psychology of relationships and variable patterns of behavior that reveal the hidden feelings and emotions of individuals and their underlying motivations. Games, art, and culture have a sort of psychological singularity. Games have artistic and recreational value, whether online or offline. They are designed to entertain as well as to inform. Games have emotive content, which effects tend more toward the cognitive. The thin line between entertainment and information often becomes elusive. Games arguably may not convey a discernible message, but even the non-cognitive forms of expressions can be a means of promoting self-development, and therefore they do not readily fall within the unprotected category of expression. The interactivity of online gaming does not cut their status as expression, but enhances the expressive impact of a medium. Playing of games creates a mood of abstract art apart from causing a subtle shaping of thoughts and characterizes all artistic expression. The provision of our constitution, having become expansive by the judicial process, as you say, if you remember the Puttaswamy case and everything, where they have expanded the scope of Article 21, do not deny protection to abstract painting, avant-garde music, and nonsensical poetry. Therefore, and I quote, the games of skill fall within the protective contours of Article 19(1)(a) and Article 21, of course, which is subject to reasonable restriction by law. Now you all will be saying, yeah, you just said it is in reasonable restriction of law. The legislature has placed the restriction. What's your problem with that? What is the court's problem with that? Gambling is a menace. People are committing suicide. People are losing money. There is a reasonable restriction which the legislature thought. And that should be thing. But we should remind ourselves that the restriction can't be manifestly arbitrary. The restriction which was sought to be imposed was ruled as being manifestly arbitrary and irrational insofar as it did not distinguish between two different categories of games. That is, like I said earlier, games of skill and games of chance. The games of skill is based, like I said, mainly on mental and physical level of expertise of a player rather than a chance. And a game of chance, however, is determined mainly from a random factor of any time. In games of chance, use of skill is present, but a higher level or the preponderance of chance is higher. The court also held that the state government provided no evidence or data on whether a sweeping ban was justified and neither constituted a committee of experts to study the issue. The court also held that playing online games could help in building the character of an individual, and enjoying online gaming could also fall within the contours, like I said, of right to privacy and freedom and expression. The court also further opined that the regulation of online games may be a better and proportionate solution rather than an outright ban, which I said is, like I said, the restriction has to be reasonable. So the court said if you can achieve the same outcomes that you seek to achieve, can be done by a better and proportionate solution rather than an outright ban. And it left it open for the state government to come up with a new legislation dealing with betting and gambling in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Now, a similar thing was also done by the Madras High Court, wherein the Telangana's, like I said, the Telangana Act banning cyberspace online gaming and online gaming, whether it be games of skill or not, was struck down as being unconstitutional, mainly on same reasoning. Am I audible, everyone? If I go to the next slide, please. So now, what's there for online gaming apps and businesses which do provide, which is actually a multi-billion-dollar industry right now in India, and they want to get into this space, but they are scared of getting into it. So for this, there are self-regulating bodies. Sorry, did someone have any question? Or maybe just okay. So like I said, so there are many businesses or like app developers who sometimes come and consult me on like even my friends and all as to like how to get out of this, because the uncertainty is creating a lot of issues into getting investors, which is again, it's like a circle. So if you don't have an investor, the app won't go big, and if the app doesn't go big, it doesn't add to the economy, and it's just a circle. This does create a huge level of employment. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry in India. Like a recent report which I read, if the black economy of gambling is as big as $100 billion, imagine if we do regularize it or give people initiative to regularize it, the amount of revenue it may generate for the state and the country. So like this, there are a couple of organizations which have come out. These are self-regulating bodies headed by noble judges, former judges of the Supreme Court or the High Courts, noble practitioners, and well-known experts in this field. Like the couple of them I would say is AIGF, that is the All India Gaming Federation, and the FIFS, that is Federation of Indian Fantasy Sports. Both, as I said, were the petitioners in the recent judgment which I enumerated of the Karnataka High Court. Now, these apps and businesses can apply to them and seek a certificate as to define whether what they are conducting is a game of skill or a game of chance. So that at least that gives some ease to the investor. I'm not saying it's binding. Please don't get me wrong. None of this is binding on any court of law and holds no value. But it does give a certain amount of comfort to investors when notable practitioners and experts in the field are classifying it as a game of skill. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, gaming and betting in different jurisdictions, sorry. Now, like have you seen, like in United Kingdom, gambling and betting industry is governed by the United Kingdom Gambling Act of 2005. It mostly everything's allowed. Gambling is also allowed, and there's no distinction between game of skill or game of chance. Everything is allowed, but yeah, subject to certain restrictions, age bar, and licensing fees. How we have in Goa, Sikkim, Nagaland, Tamil Nadu, as I mentioned. Same thing, now we come to South Africa. The gaming activities in South Africa were previously governed by the South Africa Gambling Act of 1965 that banned all forms of betting and gambling except on horse racing, which is considered to be a sport but is now governed by the National Gambling Act 2004. In India also, there's a separate exemption for horse racing, provided it is only done in turf and you could place the bet not in advance, but when the race is about to start, on the day of the race, basically. So apart from games of skill, there is one more exemption that is for this horse racing, which you will find in Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, and Calcutta. Popular turf clubs are there. In the United States, the gaming laws are comparatively very liberal. Gambling activities are governed by 3 sets of regulation, and at each level, local, state, and federal. While some states have detailed gaming laws that go back to more than 2 centuries, other states are yet to address key facets of this industry. Now, if you see, like the beginning of the lecture, I said a new form of gaming gambling has come in the market. That is a prediction market, whether it's going to rain today or not, whether this YouTube video is going to hit 100 million views in the next one day or not. Is this political party, based on the recent news and information available, is this political party going to win or not? So these are all prediction markets. They've been formally, the word binary auctions trading has come from US itself. And US and UK recently, actually UK recently, just before the elections with Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, they banned the prediction market, which was based on political prediction. That thing was banned. So certain things, regulation notifications do keep on coming in this thing. even though it is liberal in these countries, but even they sought to regulate it in light of the greater good. Next slide, please. Yeah. So like I said, the central laws that they're governing these gaming, gambling forms are like, if there's a list right out there, there's a non-exhaustive list, and sometimes like FEMA or like the Prevention of Money Laundering Act do kick in if they consider money laundering and all to be taking place, because sometimes what is happening, and the ED has been facing a lot of this problem, is that there are some app developers which are operating out of certain countries like Korea, China, Somalia, and all, and they are conducting games, whether it be games of skill or not, through online portals and duping people, because the algorithm is such that people are bound to lose and the money is taken out of the country. So anti-money laundering laws and FEMA do kicking in such situations. Next slide, please. So now, like I said, this is a state subject, but the central government, or the union, how would say, has recommended to tighten the regulatory framework governing online games, and it has advocated for a stricter stance on online gambling by creating a regulatory body to differentiate online games. Like I said, how AIGF and all is, they are planning to get a regulatory body which will have the authority to grant that license, and which is and to distinguish between game of chance and game of skill. But again, it's such a subjective thing. It really depends on how you present your game to the committee. If you have a person who is very good with words, you can distinguish anything as a game of skill. I can say today betting on cricket is a game of skill. I can always say that. I can say I've studied the player's the past report. I have seen his fitness. I've seen maybe his eating habits. I've seen the pitch report, and based on that, I'm betting that he might score a 50 plus. That is a skill. I've used my mind. So how do you distinguish? There is no black and white in this. It's a very gray subjective line. It all depends as to how you place it and how the person who is recording the report perceives it. Now, recently, the Tamil Nadu came out with an ordinance number 4 2022. This I would like to show because this just came out yesterday night and I just added it in the morning to show you all as the anomaly that is created in this as well, which goes really, which I'll tell you the moment I show you. Nancy, can you just give me the rights to present the screen share, please? Just a sec, please. Sorry. Just a sec. Yeah. Have you done it, Nancy? Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen? Yes, yeah. Cool. So this is the latest ordinance that has come out. Just a sec. I'll just take it to the title. So this is the Tamil Nadu. This is the Tamil Nadu Ordinance number 4 2022, which is an ordinance to prohibit online gambling and to regulate online games in the state of Tamil Nadu. Like it does say that on 3rd October, but it was given the assent of the governor yesterday. I'll take you down as to what this says. Like if you remember, I just told you about the Madras High Court, where they struck down a similar law of the Tamil Nadu Amendment Act, which basically banned online games of skill, and they left it open to the legislature to come up with a new legislation which regulates it. So if you see here, they have said online gambling is prohibited. Read the highlight portion. Playing of online games of chance specified in the schedule with money or other stakes is prohibited. Now everybody's thinking, okay, yeah, Tamil Nadu government has gone back, they've taken notes of the court, and they have come up with this thing and saying that, okay, online games of chance, which has been the position throughout, the chance is not allowed, is now prohibited. Then why is this guy showing us this? They've done a right job. But as lawyers, we have to always not just look, we have to always look at the letter of the law and read between the lines. Now I'll show you the anomaly of that. Right here. Like I said, online game of chance is allowed. Is not allowed, they said, which I think. Now see how they define online game of chance. Online game of chance includes any online game which involves both an element of chance and an element of skill, and the element of chance dominates over the element of skill. Perfect. Very perfect. We don't have any issue with this. Is what Supreme Court said. Second, involves an element of chance that can be eliminated only by superlative skill. Okay, maybe this may be fine where they're saying where the thing of skill is so big, then only it will be eliminated. So they're taking a higher degree, very high. Like if I would say something like Supreme Court would be saying 50, they just said predominantly so it could be 51% skill and 49% game of chance. Here they're saying it should be superlative, so maybe 3/4, like how it is beyond reasonable doubt kind of thing. Now look at this. Is a game that is presented as involving an element of chance. So now whether even if it is 5% of chance, you're categorizing it as an online game of chance. Again, you're back to square one. You're going against the judgment of the Supreme Court in this. Supreme Court has clearly said there has to be every game has an element of chance. There is a certain amount of luck involved in every game, but only where skill goes above chance is where we'll categorize as skill, and where chance goes above skill is where we categorize as chance. Here they have said anything is chance will be categorized as online game. So this is the anomaly which they have to, I'm pretty sure, will be appealed against by again our self-regulating body folks, that is FIF and AIGF, or also some motivated litigators. So that's it, my friend. That was today's lecture of giving you a crux and a conspicuous overview of gaming and gambling laws in India. I know it's such a large topic that I cannot cover it within the contours of 1 hour. But I hope I did justice to your time and you spending an hour of your Sunday on me. And yeah, I would be taking any questions if you guys would want me to answer.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening our participants on such an interesting and important topic. Now it's time for a question and answer round. In case you have any queries, you may clear them from our guest speaker. Guys, are there any questions?
Looks like everyone understood it very well. No, it's fine. If you guys can't think of it right now, you can always write to me or email me. Nancy can share my email address, and I'm always happy to answer any queries. And also to students, if they want any help in any other contours, always happy to help and mentor them.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. It was really an informative and knowledgeable session with you today. I
Someone has a question. Someone called Anirudh. If you would like to speak up, or you can type it out. Yes, please. Oh, can you just unmute him?
Very good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, so recently Meghalaya state also, legalized the gaming law.
Yes.
So my question to you is, the other day actually I was reading this Meghalaya regulation of gaming rules 2021.
Okay.
So sir, there was this provision that if someone to a person, hello sir.
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah. So, sir, there is a provision which says the applicant must have I'm reading that eligibility provision to apply for grant of license.
Yeah.
Okay, so the applicant must have minimum 5 years of continuous experience of conducting games of skills and games of chance. So, sir, how that person can showcase he has outstanding experience in conducting game of skills or game of chance?
I mean, like if I have a business running in Goa and already I have a casino in Goa, that's a very well thing because then I can say like for the past 5 years. Like again, it's a bit discriminatory if you ask me to keep such a high standard of 5 years of skill. But yeah, like I said, there are other states where it is allowed. So most of the participants are going to be from that state. And also, if you're conducting games of skill, which has been, I would say, authorized by case laws like basically like poker. Poker is a game of skill. Now, if I have proof that I have been conducting games in Delhi, which also has the exemption of game of skill, I've been conducting tournaments. There are many people who do that, conducting tournaments of poker and all. Then you can get it as long as you have sufficient documentation. You should be fine.
Okay,
But
all right,
again,
sir. So,
this brings me to another interesting thing. Like Nagaland gives license. A lot of people told me, but then like, oh yeah, I have a license from Nagaland to conduct games of skill. I like games of skill or game of chance. But who is Nagaland to enforce their decision? Someone like Karnataka or Tamil Nadu. It's that state. In that state, you do whatever you want. You can't do it pan India.
all right, sir. Got it. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else? SN has raised his hand. One more question. Mr. Naya has.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sharat Nayak from Bangalore speaking here.
Good
I
evening,
just
sir.
had I had just had one simple question, just to refer to what you had mentioned earlier about prediction markets being banned in the UK. Could you just please
Not
elaborate?
banned. Not banned. It is like I said, certain contours. Like just before elections, sometimes they regulate it and say no more. You can't do it anymore because it tends to rig elections. So like how in UK also it is there, but just before the elections, they figured that a lot of black money and a lot of money laundering is happening in this time, and it is a very unpredictable election because, like you see, both are very neck to neck, and in such situation, the greater harm that is going to happen to the general public has to be taken into account, and that's when they banned it. So there's not a total ban, but to regulate certain contours in the interest of public, they would regulate certain activities or certain types of prediction to be banned. And the same thing is always there. I mean, like if you ask me personally, if there is like prediction market in India, and during election there's a moratorium going on where people can't conduct elections. In such situations, if you have this something like this prediction markets going on, if you expand the definition, then this should come within that time. If the politicians are not allowed to promote their thing, this is also a way of promoting only. So even this should be stopped.
All right. So, in what other contexts do these prediction markets also work, apart from elections and politics?
Anything, like anything under the roof, uh, will I mean, it's just a question, right? Will it rain tomorrow? I've given you the geographical things. Okay, yeah, in Bombay it usually rains. Bombay during monsoon seasons from June to July, it usually rains. I have given you in the last 4 days it has been raining. I'll give you certain information, and then two people choose between, like, you know how binary options work, right? It's always out of 100. So either you choose yes or no. So based on that, you choose. And you might be thinking, okay, yeah, it has been raining for 4 days. It's very high chances of raining. So yes is at 70 rupees right now. So you choose yes. Whereas someone has a hunch and like, even though my chances of winning only 30%, but I know it's not going to rain tomorrow because of maybe some other factors. You would have read more reports. You would have figured out maybe the wind is going to another cycle, and you would have chosen that. So that's what I'm saying. Binary options trading can be as detailed as what I just said. If people are reading reports, looking at the wind and everything, or just a gut feeling whether it's putting it on chance, whether this will rain tomorrow or not. That's what I'm saying. It really comes down to how you put it on paper. Anything which is a chance can be shown as a skill, and if you don't put it properly, it can be shown as a game of chance.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Guys, if there are any questions, do let me know.
I think Mr. Kamath has some question. He has raised his hand. Can you please unmute him?
I'm unmuted. Yes, that was really nice
Hi.
to hear you, Mr. Anurag.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Kamath.
Yes. I've been quite following you a lot. Right. Just a simple question. You see, Northeast, especially Nagaland, Sikkim, I've been quite
Yeah.
active in this online gambling, and looks like the government, the state government there, has been more promoting this rather than any of the South or any other thing. Any specific reason for this? Quite surprising. Always we say Sikkim lottery, Nagaland or Meghalaya. Why Northeast? And
See,
with this, just to continue here, see, though these states are opening up for these, virtual games and online games, they are able to operate. The companies are incorporated in India, but they say only Sikkim. But how do you restrict it? Because the transaction is online.
100%. See, now this actually has, I have a lot to say on this. So how do you restrict it? I would start with that because that's the smallest answer. So the bill is also, the government is actually looking at a bill. Like I said, they're looking to regulate this. So they are thinking of geo tagging so that anyone who is in that state won't be able to access that app, like which the state has banned it. Now coming to the thing, why Northeast? See, if you should also see that everyone has a certain revenue model. If you see in Sikkim, there are 2 casinos, but the locals are not allowed there. So it is mainly for tourist extraction. Even in Goa, the tourists are not majorly allowed. If they're allowed, they have to pay, I think, double or triple than what we are paying to get into the casino. Because they don't want their locals to get addicted because it's so easily accessible. For tourists, they'll have to come all the way and they'll come maximum for 3, 4, 5 days, but they'll go. People who are residents there, they won't let them come in that easily. And this is a very good revenue model for these states because they don't have anything else. Like how, if you say Maharashtra is the commercial capital, Karnataka has a lot of tea estates, Andhra Pradesh has ports and everything. So everyone has a certain revenue model which keeps the state afloat and the revenue generating. Sikkim has found this. Same thing if you see Singapore. You can go to Singapore and go to a casino, it's free entry for you. But if you're a resident of Singapore, you have to pay like, I think around, if I'm not wrong, last I checked was around $200-300 because they want to deter their locals. So it's more of a revenue model to get you in. And then what you're saying about online, this online, the advent of technology is something which has to be taken in mind, and this betting and gambling subject, like this is just my personal view, has to move from a state list to a concurrent list or a union list. Because like you said, people are saying that they are only in Sikkim, but it's available throughout the country. Like
Yes.
even if you use geotagging, there are apps on our phone which are like VPN and all, and you just use the VPN and you're allowed to use those apps. So just by putting it on state and every state having a different law and regulating it just by calling it geotagging is not going to help. In my opinion, it has to move towards the union or concurrent list. But again, doing that is another issue. States are going to revolt because it's a huge hit towards the revenue for them, especially states like Sikkim, Nagaland, Goa for all the matter. Like most of their thing is running because of the gaming and gambling industry. So it has a lot of geopolitical issues as well. But like rightfully you said that this is a menace that has been going on. People say it is allowed there. I've taken a license in Nagaland, so I should be allowed. But right now there is a law which is here in Karnataka. Like now the case, the High Court did call it unconstitutional, but before it did, it was a law. You have to follow. But how do you adhere to the law? Geotagging is a name. You use UVPN and you're allowed to use it. So this is something which the parliament is also pondering upon, but we'll have to see how easily will the states be able to give this up, because it's a huge revenue model for them as well.
Yes, but then though it is a revenue model, except Nagaland and Sikkim, Rest everybody else, has not been very successful. You bring it up, even for example, the Tamil Nadu, bill which you have just displayed. There is already a loophole which you have shown up. So it is just a matter that somebody goes and appeals and then it falls. Only the people interested in the business may defend it. Otherwise, it falls.
Yeah, now there's a two distinction. One is that we can say it is going to fall, but Nagaland and Sikkim have part and they're giving license. So as a businessman, where I have to fight rather than where I can just get a license and go to the place where I get license, and at least have something to show. I'm not saying it will be binding on other states. It's something to show. It's a license.
As Mr. Anurag said, the geotagging is just eyewash.
Yeah.
Is what I feel, because and also it is unfair that you do not allow your locals. You're okay that somebody else loses the money, but not your own people. You're okay that somebody outside
create the same menace.
Nagaland people can go to Sikkim and Sikkim can come to Nagaland. It's just a border. Yeah.
But then the effort you'll have to take. If you have something which is across the road, God knows what's that's going to happen. The same way liquor is also prohibited. Like if you go to US or UK, even a departmental store will serve liquor. If we start doing that in India, people will die of alcoholism. Because this country, we have to also understand the culture and the state of a country. India is not a predominant. How I would call India is a rich country of poor people. The rich are too rich and the poor are too poor, and everyone and the majority, 99% of the population wants to make a quick buck.
Yeah, so overall, sir, what would be your suggestion that there can be a balance, that this is looked at more of a skill and people don't get addicted and lose a lot of money in that. So what would be overall with your expertise? Would you say that how should we move forward from here? Though it's a big market, no doubts about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would always say that you should regularize the entire gaming and betting market with certain regulations, with KYC authentication. If you're registering into any website, I would say submit your Aadhaar card and your PAN card, and there should be a certain level of restriction for a person earning a certain amount of money. So if you're below a person, like through your PAN card, we get to know you're a person who's making minimum only up to 5 to 10 lakhs. You shouldn't be allowed to bet in a year above that money. These type of regulations have to come in place if we want to regularize entire betting and gambling. Without such safeguards, it's very difficult to keep people in control.
True, sir. I think that's a fair thing. KYC, PAN, you connect it, and then money restriction based on their legal money, whatever they have done that.
Exactly. So through PAN, you have the data.
Thank you so much.
And higher tax on those earnings to act as a deterrent as well. Like how in crypto we have 28% tax now.
Straight away TDS. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think we're done now.
Guys, any more questions? Fine. So thank you so much, sir. It was really an informative and knowledgeable session with you today. I also thank our participants as well for being a patient listener. We appreciate your time and patience, and will make sure that we keep serving you all with such webinars in future as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vidhi, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Bye. Happy Sunday.